Today is February 5th. Today is a special day for many of the people who follow this path of Sufism, this Sufism kind of interdenominational Sufism or universal Sufism. And it's a very special day because it's the day of the Urs. Urs means the anniversary, the wedding anniversary actually, of the death of Inayat Khan. He died in 1927, and he really had a very unusual life, an unusual mission, and it affected so many of us so deeply. He came to the West when he was a very young man. He had nothing, and he lived in the West for 16 years and then went back to India, where he came from, and he died in 1927, as I said, at the age of 44. His mother was American from the West, Aura Ray Baker, and I don't know if any of you have ever seen a book called The Great Anybody see it? It's a very interesting book. And it's about a man who had lived in the Midwest, in Kansas, I think? Yeah. And in a little town in Kansas, and he, across the street from him, in this little town, lived a mystic from India. And in the whole history of the United States, up until that point, it was the end of the 19th century, I think there had been a total of 800 Indians that had visited or lived in America. And here was one living across the street from this kid. And as a 12-year-old kid, the mystic really took him and taught him many of the inner ways and the inner secrets. And his name was Pierre Bernard. Pierre Bernard. And Pierre Bernard's sister was Aura Ray Bernard, and then Aura Ray Baker.
No, her name was always Aura Ray Baker because she's the half-sister.
Oh, right, right. And what happened, to make a really long story short, he became very famous. He was something like Deepak Chopra is today. It was a household word, and everybody went to his yoga teachings. He was the first one to bring yoga to America. And he could do remarkable things. It's an interesting book if you want to read it. And one of the things he did was give an opening to this Indian musician whose name was Inayat Khan. And Inayat Khan met his sister, and of course he was this very open yogi promoting yoga in America. But when it came to marrying his sister, he wasn't as open as he had been. And basically they had to run away, and they got married in England. They were in England, they were in Russia. They had 4 children and settled finally outside of Paris. And many people were drawn to Inayat Khan. He was teaching a very new kind of teaching, which was that no one way was better, and that no one religion was better, and that not only that, but all of the religions were connected by their messengers, by their prophets, by their god, by their goddess. They were all actually manifestations of that unnameable one. And he emphasized 3 things. One was love, one was harmony, one was beauty. And he was a great musician. He was probably the best musician in India. When he came here, he had all of these wonderful awards and gold jewelry and rings from the Maharajas, which he lost just before he came to America. He got off a train and left everything on it, and it was never recovered, of course. And he came to the West and had this idea that people all over the world were in a phenomenal state of evolutionary change, that the attachment to the narrow way was not going to work into the future. And he didn't try and get everybody to form a new religion. He also didn't emphasize any one culture over another. He didn't emphasize the Indian culture over European culture or the American culture. And I wanted to read something tonight. I don't usually read at this class, but it just seems so important for tonight. So I apologize for doing the reading, and I won't just read it. I will make comments if there are comments to be made. This was written in 1926. It was a talk he gave just before he left for India and died. And it is important to note that he, as a young man, was sent to the West by many different mystical schools of the East. And they had kept this inner way for millennia. And it never did come to the West, these paths of the East. And he was trained by yogis, and he was trained by Sufis, and he was trained by great musicians, and he was trained by what's called the Khwajagan, these great spiritual beings from what's now Mongolia and Central Asia. And they all put this investment into him and sent him to the West. The coming world religion. There are many prophecies and several beliefs concerning this subject, but what is most needed is to understand what religion really means. The present religion, the coming religion, or the past religion is for those who divide the truth. Is for those who divide the truth. The truth which is one into many. In point of fact, what was is, and what is will be. Was this idea not supported by Jesus Christ, who said, "Think not that I am come to destroy the law or the prophets. I am not come to destroy, but I have come to fulfill." If Jesus Christ said this, who else can come forth and say, "I will give you a new religion"? There cannot be a new religion. One might as well say, "I wish to teach you a new wisdom." There cannot be a new wisdom. Wisdom is the same, which was and is and always will be. Now, the great thing about that one paragraph is what? What do you think? What do you feel? What do you hear? You didn't think you could just sit there and listen, did you?
Truth is unchangeable?
Truth is unchangeable. Keep going.
One.
Yeah, but there is a great teaching for each individual behind that paragraph, and the teaching is truth is eternal. All of that's true, but there's a really basic teaching, which is for this to be so, the ego needs to be trained. Otherwise, mine is better than yours. It's natural in the human being without training. Where does it come from? It comes from the idea that I have the right to grab this piece of meat so my family can survive even if yours can't. And it's pretty deeply ingrained into us. But once we realize, oh, we can share the meat, there'll be enough for all, or tofu or whatever you wish, it changes everything, but it takes ego training to be able to hear that. One may ask, what then is the variety of religions which has engaged humanity for years in conflict with one another, so that most of the wars and battles were fought in the cause of religion? And it doesn't seem to be changing that much today. This only shows the childish character of human nature. Religion, which was given for unity, for harmony, for the creation of the family of humanity, was used by childish human beings in order to fight and dispute and engage themselves in battles for years and years. And to a thoughtful person, the most curious thing is to see how in the past human beings have given a most sacred character to war, calling it a sacred war or a holy war. And the same tendency of making war against one another, which began with religion, persisted in the time of materialism. The same tendency turned into war between nations. It gets better, by the way, don't get too depressed. Yet the differences and distinctions between the different faiths and beliefs still remain, and the prejudices and differences and bigotry between nations still exist to a greater or lesser degree. What does this show? What does this show? It shows that the meaning of true religion has not been understood by the majority. And therefore that mission, which religion has to fulfill in connection with humanity, still remains to be fulfilled. Jesus Christ hinted at that fulfillment when he said that he had come not to fulfill the law, not to give a new law. So think about this. He isn't saying, by the way, that everybody should give up their religion. What he's saying is that because truth is one, religion should be a force that draws us together, not tears us apart. Religion can be considered from 5 different points of view. The first is the aspect of religion which is known to us as certain dogmas, laws, or teachings. And when we think of the conditions prevailing in the world today, we see that the law is now given by the nation. Every nation is now responsible for the order and peace of its people. So the difference between, ideally, the law being given by religion and the law being given by relation is what? Ideally, the law being given by religion, where does it come from? Comes from God. And so there wouldn't be conflict, there wouldn't be different interpretations. There wouldn't be all of this sectarianism. There could be division on cultural reasons, there could be division on temperament, but there wouldn't be anything that says, oh, this prophet is real, this prophet is God, and that prophet is not a prophet at all, but a monster, much of which we hear today. The second aspect of religion is the church and the form of the service. In this there are differences, and there will always be differences. It is a matter of temperament, of tendency, and it also depends upon the customs and belief of the people who have inherited that tendency from their ancestors. Some have in their house of prayer different forms and ceremonies which help them to feel elevated. Others have a simple service, since that appeals to them more. It makes total sense. People should have that which they feel comfortable with, which they feel natural with. But it doesn't require the tearing down of the other. You know, we do a service many of you have seen called the Universal Worship. We light a candle for each of the major religions of the world and some other religions, and any religion can be on the altar. All the candles are equal. And behind the candles there is this one candle, and the light of that one candle comes through all the different candles. And the great thing is, you can't tell just by looking at the candle what the nature of that religion is. The other thing is, sometimes we do the service in the East. In the East we use, not Eastern US, but in the East of the world, in the Orient, and we use lamps instead of candles. Because there, candles have a certain connotation. They connote Christianity. So that's the big change, you know, to go from candles to lamps to suit a culture. But basically, it's the same with the slight, bless you, a slight surface change. No doubt the world is moving towards uniformity. And just as now we see no very great difference between the forms of everything, of different customs and greetings and dressing and many other things, so people too are coming to a certain uniformity. This is both fortunate and unfortunate. We were just in India a few weeks ago, and in the space of what seems like a few years, in the cities, for the most part, you don't see Indian dress anymore. If you see people in Indian dress, they're usually Westerners. And, you know, the Indian dress was really beautiful, both the men and the women. But especially the women was so colorful and elegant, and you'd see people, you'd see women working on building a road in a beautiful sari. You know, there wasn't this utilitarian clothing, but those days seem to be over. At the same time, when we look at it from a different point of view, this line is cut off, so you have to. We shall find that uniformity often takes away the beauty of life. In the countries which are civilized and advanced, where the architecture and houses are all on the same plan, remember this is 1926, where all are dressed in the same way, one becomes so tired of them that one likes to go to a different country and see houses which are different from the other, and people too. The method of writing music and the form of notation is the same for the whole Western world, but this distinction between the music of the French, the Italians, the Germans, and Russians gives a stimulus to the lover of music, and so it is with the distinctions of all forms. To want to make all people live alike and to act alike means to turn all people into the same form and give them the same face. And what would happen then? This also was written right after the Russian Revolution. And when communism had this idea in Russia, in the Soviet Union, that everybody should dress the same and act the same, it didn't work out that way. The world could become very uninteresting. It would be like tuning all the keys of the piano to the same note. It is not necessary to change the notes of the piano. What is necessary is to understand harmony, to know how to create harmony among the different notes. Just read a little bit more. Are you okay? You falling asleep? Or? The third aspect of religion, this is really critical, is the religious ideal. The religious ideal, the Lord and Master of religion, the Lord and Master that a soul esteems as its ideal. It is something that cannot be discussed, something about which one cannot argue. The less it is spoken of, the better it is. It is the outcome of the devotion of a sincere heart. You know, a really sincere heart in love creates the beloved. It is the outcome of the devotion of a sincere heart which gives birth to an ideal too sacred to mention, an ideal which cannot be compared or explained. And when the followers of different religions come to this question and dispute over their ideals, the sacred ideals which they have not known but have only heard about, and wish to prove one better than the other, they merely waste time, and they destroy that sacred sentiment which can only be preserved in the heart. And I'll tell you a story. I'll tell you a few stories. One is a story about a simple young woman who was very much in love with her beloved. And she was walking on the path to see her beloved, and she was so excited. She hadn't seen him for a while, and she was really in an ecstatic condition. And she walked by a man who was praying, and he was a Muslim, she was a Muslim. In Islam, you don't walk in front of people when they're praying, you walk behind him. And she walked in front of him because she was just lost in this magical connection, thinking about her beloved that she was going to go see. And he got up very angrily and said, "Could you not see that I'm in prayer?" Could you not see that? You walked right in front of me. And she looked at him and said, you know, I was thinking about my beloved, and I didn't see you. Certainly, if you were thinking about your beloved, you wouldn't have seen me. And the other story, not quite as elegant in one way, but more so in another. There was a great Zen teacher at the beginning of the 20th century, first one to come to the West, and his name was Shakusoyen. And Shakusoyen left Noyen Senzaki and a few others who really started the whole Zen movement in America, but he was the teacher. And he was, if you ever see a picture of him, this little slight man who really had a face that was like a beautiful woman, and just shining light. And there was a religious professor at Berkeley, UC Berkeley, and the religious professor and another person who was hosting Inayat Khan decided it would be interesting for this great Zen master and this great Sufi master to meet. So they arranged this dinner. And during the dinner, it was just the four of them, the college professor and the other person just asked them question after question after question. This went on for 45 minutes or an hour. At that point, the two mystics stood up and said, now we will meditate. And the two of them sat down and they went into a room and they went into deep meditation for hours. They didn't say a word. At the end of the 2 hours, or maybe it was more, they opened their eyes and they were laughing. And Shakusoyen looked at Inayat Khan and he said, Mr. Inayat Khan, I see Zen in you. And Inayat Khan said, Mr. Shakusoyen, I see Sufism in you. That was the end of the meeting. So this idea that a religious ideal can separate us stems from the desire to be separate. The insecurity in a human being that says, I can know truth only if you can't. I can know truth and you can know it only if you agree with my truth. There are as many gods as there are human beings. Every human being really creates their own God. They don't admit it, but we all create our own God. Whatever we want God to be, that's what God is. Now, is there a God beyond that? There is. But that's the God that you can't say anything about. You can't speak about. Okay. So the religious ideal is the third aspect. The religious ideal is the medium by which one raises towards perfection. You know, if you're in love, your beloved is perfect. But what's even more magical is if you're in love and you make your beloved perfect, making your beloved perfect makes you perfect. If you are living your life and constantly seeing this ideal, that ideal makes you that which you see. Whatever name a person gives to their ideal, that name is for them and is most sacred to them. But this does not mean that giving it a name limits the ideal. There is only one ideal, and that is the divine ideal. Call this Christ, if we will, and let the same Christ be known by different names given to him by various communities. For instance, a person who has a great devotion, a great love and attachment for his friend may speak about friendship in lofty words. He may say what a sacred thing it is to become friends. But then there is another who says, what? I know who your friend is and what he is. He's no better than anybody else. The true answer in such cases is given by Majnun. In the story told by the ancients, there's this ancient myth, Layla and Majnun. I spoke about it this weekend. And it is the classic love story which Romeo and Juliet was modeled after. And it is about two people whose ideal is love, and nothing can touch that love. And they become each other ultimately. But anyway, in the beginning, when someone said to Majnun, Majnun is the guy, Layla, your beloved, is not so beautiful as you think. He said, my Layla must be seen with my eyes. If you wish to see how beautiful Layla is, you must borrow my eyes. Therefore, if we wish to regard the object of devotion of whatever faith or whatever community, of whatever people, we have to borrow their eyes. Can you imagine what would happen today with all of this strife between East and West, between Islam and Christianity and Judaism? Can you imagine if we really could spend a month living each other's faith, but not just as a charade, not just putting on a costume, but actually putting on the feeling? Because what we do now is we say, how could they be so upset about a cartoon? I don't get it. Well, that's true. We don't get it. Should we be able to see with the eyes of a Muslim, well, we would see it differently. Or a Christian, or a Jew, or a Buddhist, Ora. That's why she was named Ora Ray Baker. We have to borrow their heart. It is no use disputing over each historical tradition. They have often sprung from prejudice. Devotion is a matter of the heart, and devotion is offered by the devotee. The fourth aspect of religion is the idea of God. There will always be fights and discussions about this, as people are wont to say, the God of our family is one and the God of your family is another. In ancient times there was a dispute between the people who said the God of Beni Israel was a special God, and so every community and every church made its God a special God. If there is a special God, it is not only a special God of a community, but a God of every individual. For each human being has to make their own God before they realize the real God. But that God which human beings make within themselves becomes in the end the door by which they enter the shrine of their innermost being, the real God who is in the heart of each human being. And then one begins to realize that God is not a God of a certain community of people, but that God is the God of the whole being. Next, we come to the aspect of religion, getting to the end, which is not the law or the ceremony or the divine ideal or God, but which is apart from these four. It is something living in the soul, in the mind, and in the heart of a human being. Its absence keeps us as dead, and its presence gives us life. If there is any religion, it is this. If there is any religion, it is this. It is that life that exists within our breath. It is that life that's there beyond question, beyond doubt, beyond separation. It is that very essence of life which will stay with us through the rest of our journey in this world and all the others to come, if we're open to it. But it's delicate and it's subtle. I had a beautiful teacher, Sam Lewis. And he used to say, the question is not whether the lion and the lamb will lie down together. The question is whether they will let a little child lead them. So we have power in us. We have the lion. We have simplicity in us. We have the lamb. But will we have the depth of true faith to experience that subtle aspect of life that will carry us through into awakening? And what is it? The Hindus have called it dharma, which in the ordinary meaning of the word is duty. But it is something much greater than what we regard as duty in our everyday life. It is life itself. When a person is thoughtful and considerate, when they feel their obligations towards their fellow human beings, towards their friend, towards their father or mother, or in whatever relation they may stand to others, it is something living. It is like water which gives the sense of living to the soul. It is this living soul which really makes a person alive. And the person who is not conscious of this, who is not conscious of this tenderness, this sacredness of life, may be alive, but their soul is in the grave. One does not need to ask a person who is conscious of this what their religion or their belief is, for they are living it. Life itself is their religion, and this is the true religion. The person conscious of honor, the person who has a sense of shame, a feeling of sincerity, whose sympathy and devotion are alive, that person is living, that person is religious. I remember in 1970, I went to Turkey for the first time, and I had heard about a teacher, and he was in a bookstore. He had a bookstore, but everybody said, oh, if you go to Istanbul, you should see this teacher, a very great teacher. And I went into the store. I asked a number of people. In Istanbul, the bookstores are all next to each other in the book market. And I said, where can I find him? And some people didn't say anything. Others said, you don't want to go see him. And some said, you go here and you'll meet him. And I went into the shop and sat down in the shop. And I was a complete freak. You know, my hair was out and I had a beard and I was wearing a sheepskin jacket with the long hair of the sheep sticking out and everything. It was a different era. And all the people there were in suit jackets and so on. And he saw me and he came over and started to talk to me very, very clearly, very lovingly. And he asked me simple questions about my family and my background and where I went to school and what I studied, what made me happy. It was really just a sweet conversation. He gave me tea and cookies. And it was through an interpreter, but I was surprised because I could get a sense of what was being said, just intuitively. And then one of his students came in and quietly said to the teacher, and I could hear this clearly, "Is he a Muslim?" And the teacher said to the student, "Get out. You haven't learned anything." And that's what's being spoken about here. The religion of the soul, being kind, considerate. He never asked me my religion. He never asked me what I believed. He never asked me anything like that. And yet today, in so many communities, not just Muslim and Christian communities and Jewish communities, the first question implied or direct, is where can I categorize you? Are you with me or are you against me? Do you believe what I believe so I can be comfortable with you? There's a very interesting book called The Team of Rivals about Abraham Lincoln. Anybody read that book? Great book, really great book. And his cabinet was not made up of people who agreed with him. Because you don't learn anything like that. The person conscious of honor, the person who has a sense of shame, a feeling of sincerity, whose sympathy and devotion are alive, that person is living. That person is religious. This is the religion which has been the religion of the past and will be the religion of the future. All religion taught by Christ or any other of the great ones was intended to awaken in us that sense which is awakened when religion is living. It does not matter then into which building one goes to pray, for every moment of one's life has become religion. Every moment of one's life has become religion. Not a religion in which one believes, but a religion which one lives. What is the message of Sufism? Sufism is the message of digging out that water-like life, which has been buried by the impressions of this material world. There's an English phrase, a lost soul. But the soul is not lost. The soul is only buried. When it is dug out, then the divine life breaks forth like a spring of water. And then the question is, what is digging? What does one dig in oneself? Is it not true? Is it not said in the scriptures that God is love? Then where is God to be found? Is God to be found in the seventh heaven, or is God to be found in the heart of a human being? God is to be found in the heart of each human being. That is the true shrine of God. That is the true shrine of God. But if the heart is buried, if it has lost that light, that life, that warmth, what does this heart become? It becomes like a grave. In a popular English song, there's a beautiful line which says, "The light of a whole life dies when love is finished." That living thing in the heart is love. It may come forth as kindness, as friendship, as sympathy, as tolerance, as forgiveness. But in whatever form this living water rises from the heart, it proves the heart to be a divine spring. And when once this spring is open and is rising, then everything that a person does in action, in word or in feeling, is all religion. That person becomes truly religious. If there is any new religion to come, it will be this religion, the religion of the heart. After all the suffering that has been brought to humanity by the recent war, World War I, humanity is beginning to open their eyes, and as time passes, they will open their eyes and know and understand that true religion lies in opening the heart, in widening the outlook, and in living the religion which is the one true religion. So we might have many thoughts on hearing this. One, you might think, well, I know that already. I believe that. Believing it is one thing. Look at your life, mine too, and say, well, in the last week, Have I been intolerant ever? Have I lost my center? Have I lost my harmony at all? Have I been prejudiced without even knowing it? Have I gone along with someone's belief that I should have stood up to? Have I not been sympathetic when someone was reaching out to me for sympathy? You know, I feel like saying, okay, whoever hasn't, you can throw the first stone. Because I know that we have our moments of forgetfulness. But we have the real spark of this life, this real dharma, the real duty in our hearts, or we wouldn't be here tonight. It's a wonderful thing about the image of water. Water can be poured out and the pitcher can be empty. But in this particular message, this is the water of the real miracle. The more you pour out, the more that becomes. There's an old folk song, love is nothing till you give it away. And as we give it away, we seem to get more and more and more. And when we try and hold on to it, we get less and less and less. The real spring, the one we're speaking about here, has no bottom. It is bottomless. Maybe you don't get the return on your investment, so to speak, right away, but you get it. We all get it. So, in a funny way, I ask you for a while, forget about religion. Whatever is the religion of your family, your birth, it's okay, but just forget about it for a few weeks and practice this religion. There's a great king of India, great emperor, one of the greatest ever, Emperor Akbar, called Akbar the Great. And Akbar did something that was most remarkable. He said, I'm going to offer the people a religion. But the religion, his empire was from Persia to Burma. And there were Buddhists, and there were Hindus, and there were Muslims. He said, I'm going to really offer something else. I'm going to offer something called the Dini-Ilahi, the religion of the people. And I'm going to live it. I'm going to have advisors of different religions. I'm going to marry wives of different religions. I'm going to honor every religion in the kingdom. Anyone can practice whatever religion they like, as long as they practice the religion of the people, recognizing the great equality of the people. And for a while he was alive, there was a monumental shift in the consciousness in India. And people began to have real inner awakenings, and there was a great leap forward in evolution. And he had two sons, interestingly enough. One of them was translating Buddhist scriptures and was a great, really enlightened chip off the old block. And the other one was an arch conservative who killed his brother and became king. And that was the end of that chapter in the Dini-Ilahi. Now, maybe it has to be this way. You know, maybe human beings still need something to push up against. But that's the collective. It really quickens the heart and helps us to feel the religion of the heart. So if you don't know it, you could just do the best you can or hum along with us or just make some sound. It'll be fine. Making one word, Allah, and do the whole phrase on one breath. perfection of
love, harmony, and beauty. The Lord of heaven and earth, open our hearts that we may hear thy voice, which constantly comes from within. Disclose to us thy divine light, which is hidden in our souls, that we may know and understand life better. Most merciful and compassionate God, give us thy great goodness. Teach us thy loving forgiveness. Raise us above the distinctions and differences which divide us. Send us the peace of thy divine Spirit, and unite us all in thy perfect being.
Amen. 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 So tonight's meeting is in two parts. We just finished the first part. In the second part, about 25 yards away, we have a little house that we're going to do a blessing in tonight. And you can just walk right over there out the back door, and you'll see it's easy to get to, and there's a few steps, so be aware of that. And after the blessing of the house, we have some cookies and tea and coffee in the kitchen that will come out after the blessing. I would like to do something while everybody's here, but we need a candle. I do this candle, or is there a white one?
Yeah.
And we're going to wait for a white candle. Cultural, you know, after that whole speech, like white candles over colored candles. It doesn't stop. So we tried something new tonight, because it's always a little bit distasteful to say, oh, please donate at the end of the class and make this appeal so that we can keep the building going and so on. So tonight we ask that you put money in before you came in, and hopefully that worked out okay. I don't know, but it's a lot easier than finishing this nice meditation and prayer and then saying, please open up your pocketbooks and so on. It's just, you know, hopefully we'll get enough income, but we also, one of the names of God is the Zarif, or the Zarifa, and it means that God is elegant. And it's just much more elegant to not have to finish that and make this appeal. So that's the appeal, folks. The basket's there. And just give whatever you'd give for a movie.
An IMAX 3D movie.
You have to make the appeals, obviously.
Oh, do you want to say anything about your seminar?
Yes, I do, but I don't remember when it is.
April 19th, 20th, and 21st.
Great. April 19th, 20th, and 21st, 3 days. Some of you were here when I did Reincarnation Part 1. Well, that weekend will be Reincarnation Part 2. There were a lot of things that were unanswered about the reincarnation. I couldn't do it all in 3 or 4 days, so this will be the second part, and it'll be a little bit of a review of the first part, so if you weren't in the first one, it's quite all right. Just as we read in the papers about the lack of harmony in religions, there's so much superstition and belief pertaining to reincarnation and very little truth. It's just been used as another wall to divide people, and really the mystics of all faiths and all religions know the same truth and have called it by different names, and people have fought over the names and the concepts. And then we seem to lose the very essence of the truth. And during that weekend, in the evening, right, will be a concert by Hudost, some very dear friends of ours who are now becoming quite world-class musicians, and it'll give you a chance to see Moksha before Moksha delivers her baby.
Oh, really?
So please come. Her singing is better than ever, you know, because there's 2 of them singing. So please come for that. The following weekend, one of the greatest Eastern musicians in the world, Ustad Nizami, is coming, and he is, I forget what he said, 11 or 13 generations of Sufis.
18.
Okay. We can say a lot of generations, and we can ask him when he comes. He might just change it every seminar too, but one thing that he will do this time, besides a concert on Saturday night, he's a very great healer with sound. And sound is one of the purest ways to heal. And I think he's going to do individual healing with sound sessions. It's not set up yet, so we'll let you know. That's in the weekend after.
Is he bringing his young son with him?
Yes.
And
His
the
young son,
tablas?
who is 13, maybe going on 14, incredible tabla player.
Yeah.
Incredible. And you'll see what it's like to grow up. He started playing tabla when he was 3. And so he's been practicing for 10 years, and he has the discipline of a 35-year-old and the innocence of a 3-year-old. So what comes out is quite remarkable. So
I think
please.
Nizam is the 17th and the
Oh,
son
and
is
the
the
son-
18th.
I'm not getting
No.
into this at all. And that weekend, we're also going to do a very special Indian dinner as a benefit for Rising Tide, as part of the weekend with Nizami. And maybe we can even get him to cook a little bit. And a few of us who are fairly good Indian cooks will offer a good meal. There was something else. Nur al-Haq, when is Nur al-Haq coming?
The 21st of March, he'll be here.
Okay. Nur al-Haq is, I think many of you know him. He was just here at the seminar this weekend and did this beautiful rendition of a prayer of Inayat Khan's, where he did a different mudra for each of the prophets and prophetesses. And he was, as a very young man, about to become an Olympic gymnast. And so he functions at that level. And he and a very dear friend of his, both of whom are still Sufis to this day, became Sufis and didn't go to the Olympics. But Nur al-Haq also is a tremendous shiatsu practitioner and is the head of the Raphaelite work, which is a branch of healing in Sufism. It's quite powerful. So he'll be here then for 2 days, Kismet?
He'll do zikr on Thursday night, and his seminar is Saturday and Sunday.
Yeah. And if you need information on any of this, I hope it's all on our website, right? Yeah. RisingTideInternational.org. Rising Tide without the international is a very nice environmental group, but it's not us. And there are the regular events, the dances and universal worship and zikr, and so please find out about that. We're here, something's going on here. And I'm sure I left out something, but
Can I just?
of course you can, or
Well, I brought a bunch of, probably about 80 CDs, music CDs, many of which were purchased here over time, that I'm willing to pass along to other people. And so they're in the kitchen. Feel free to take them spread them out and look at them. And there's a little box in there if you'd like to leave a donation for Rising Tide. But help yourself, please. I'd like them to be all gone.
we're very gentle in our monetary appeals. Would you like to?
Well, it was, yeah.
So we'll all put our good thoughts in this. The CD store is not going to open till after the house blessing. So everybody needs to put in the good thoughts and prayers, not just for the house next door, but what I said and believe and have seen again and again is one person, one truly soulful thought can change the entirety of humanity towards the one, the perfection
Perfection of love, harmony, and beauty. the only being, united with all the illuminated souls who form the embodiment of the Master, the Spirit of guidance.
So now the blessing, here Akbar, do that, and not get wax on the rug. And I really urge, not you, but all of us, to try and live the real religion this week, or this month. Not always focused on our limited self, but focused on the soul that is constantly giving life and urging us to life. Miracles do happen that way. So thank you. Bless you.
Thank you.